This time on the Composing Made Simple podcast, we're back. We're going to do a little bit of catch up about the months that we missed there. We're going to talk a little bit about how COVID has impacted musicians and composers and what it's going to look going forward as we hopefully enter a post-COVID era. We're going to cover some sample libraries that have come out since the last time you heard from us, and we're going to do our usual picks. This time it's just me and Chris. Todd will be back next podcast. Let's get started.
Composing made simple. We talk about something new every show. Composing made simple. Grab a coffee, have a seat, and let's go.
Well, welcome back to the Composing Made Simple podcast. It's been some time, Chris. It's been a while. Yeah.
I don't even remember the very last time we met. Was it like
I think
earlier
I think
last
it was
year?
in December.
Oh, was it? Okay, true. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I think
End of
we've
the
only
year.
missed 2 months. So
True.
at least
Fair
we
enough.
have that.
It feels like a while.
We tried to get together in January, I think, and it kind of just fell apart. So, but we're all here. We're not ending the podcast. We are going to continue doing it.
We're alive.
Yeah, we're gonna at the moment, Todd. We're still trying to get Todd contacted. So it may just be Chris and I for this one, but we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah. So what's been going on? Like, let's do like some catch up. Like, what's been happening? with you?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I don't know. Like, I feel like this past year has been quite a change in most people's careers, either for the worse or the better. But for me personally, it's given me a lot of time to just reflect and think about what I really want in life and as a career. And I think I found that clarity the past few months, because the past couple of years or so I've been working on the channel and all that, and don't get me wrong, it's a lot of fun. But to be fulfilled 100% creatively, I just wasn't there yet, and I feel like I found my first love, which was songwriting. So I'm getting back into that, and I'm working on an album for mid-year, and so that's
Very nice.
keeping me busy and something to look forward to as well. Where
Yeah.
I can be 100% creative. And that's the thing about you film scoring and working for games and directors and things like that is however much you enjoy it, I feel like there is never like 100% creative control on your end.
Oh, of course not. Yeah.
Right. And then so that in part can, I guess, limit your creativity in some way. But I guess that's something I really realized in the past couple of months. It's like, yeah, I enjoy writing music the most when I'm not influenced by other people when possible. And so that's really kept me going. And I've got some new plans this year for some new products and stuff. I've been working on the online business education side of things, so that's been a lot of fun as well. I've seen some nice growth there the past half year, and hopefully it just continues along. But it just stresses the importance of us being online nowadays, because with so many people going on the internet, finding resources and wanting communities, chatting to each other, it's important to be there for people and to help people and to make a name for yourself. And if you have existing gigs already, then that's fantastic. If you haven't lost them, that's wonderful. But I think a lot of people are unfortunately not in that situation, so they're looking for some guidance. So however we can show up for them is obviously very important. But anyway, what do you think, Curtis? What's been going on?
Yeah, I'm really hoping to see like a lot more remote stuff open up. Like, in a way, I think it's going to be a little bit more competitive kind of going forward.
Yeah.
Just because I think that a lot of stuff is going remote, and I think that's going to include a lot of post-production stuff. Like if you're doing media stuff, I just like every time I see a big video game company saying we're going to hire a bunch of people and they're all going to be remote, which you see, I feel like I see that headline like every other day. I'm like, wow, there's going to be a lot of work that you probably otherwise didn't have even the opportunity to, sort of bid on, if you will, that I'm hoping kind of starts popping up around. Because I mean, I work all remote. I've always worked all remote. Like I don't live in LA. I don't live in, Seattle. I don't live in any of these sort of the big centers of entertainment. So I've always worked remote. So there's part of me that's like super excited about that, but also I'm kind of realizing, well, yeah, but now it's everybody, definitely everybody. So that's going to be interesting going forward, and hopefully this will, at least for composers, give us a little bit more opportunity in terms of just like having a lot more stuff available to us. So that's kind of something I've been really interested to see if that kind of throughout this year, if that kind of opens up a lot. Um, even as like, things are quote unquote opening up, right? Like for real. Hopefully, I mean, there's some stuff you can't do remote. And obviously for me as like a media person who just does kind of like films and games and stuff like that's really good for me because I they can't get to my part of it until they're done with all that stuff. So
for sure. Yeah, I guess that brings up like another question then. It's like, because this post has been asked quite a lot, I guess, on every single forum, but it's like, how important is it to be living in America, specifically in LA, or the centers where a lot of the media stuff happens? And it sounds like for you, because you've always been working remotely, it, at least in your situation, it hasn't been too important because you've, I guess you've already made the connections online. But for, I guess, people who are less connected to start out with, do you think it's like really important to live in a specific area, or is it more about just going online and finding those people?
I don't know. I just don't know how my career would be a ton different because like, I mean, I went to college in LA and it's not like I was trying to get gigs while I was out there, but like,
sure.
I mean, it's not like I was just, hanging out with movie stars, right? Like, or like
how many of us
whatever,
that,
right?
yeah.
Like you just,
right.
you, it's kind of just like living anywhere else.
For sure.
I mean, I can see the benefits if you're living there already, but like I don't know if I would move there at this point. I feel
right.
What we do, especially as composers, is just it's so specialized. And yeah, probably if you get hired for some big thing and they're going to do like a recording and they're going to hire an orchestra, you're going to have to be there.
Sure.
But that's like what, like 4 or 5 days that you might have to be there. I mean, that's doable. That's fine.
Right.
And these days, so much stuff isn't happening in LA. I mean, London's kind of where a lot of it's happening now because of all of our weird union rules and stuff like that. So, I mean, anyway, or maybe out in Nashville.
Sure.
So like, I mean, the chances that you're already living in a place where where that's gonna matter, I don't see it personally.
Yeah.
You'll see people swear by it all the time, but I don't know. I like LA. I actually think LA is a nice place. Like I'm kind of in the minority there. I really enjoy being out there. I think it's kind of a fun town, but but it's expensive. So sure. I don't know. It seems like maybe living in a little more down to earth place where you can maybe invest a little more in things like equipment might be a little bit smarter. That's what that's always been kind of my line, that you can work remotely anyway. I think the biggest challenge working remotely isn't necessarily even making the connections. It's once you do make the connections, like if you're going to need to be on a conference call, depending on where you are in the world, that can be at a very odd time. So just keep that in mind, that you might end up being on some conference calls at 2 a.m. Because you're in a completely different time zone. I mean, even just doing this podcast, I mean, we have to kind of like work our schedules, and we're only 2 hours different. Imagine if you're working with international people or like Australia, where it's like, the future, it's like tomorrow, right? Like I've definitely had that where I gotta like move my deadlines all back a day because like it's tomorrow already. So that can be a little strange and can sometimes be a challenge, but it's not the end of the world. So it's just something you have to plan for.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think ultimately it really depends on the route in music that you really want to go for, because if what you want to do is more isolated, like maybe you don't want to do media scoring, maybe you just want to write for the sake of writing and enjoy the entire process of being 100% creative, then it doesn't really matter at all, because you don't really need to, I guess, connect with directors or whatever. But for me personally, it's like I'm living in like the northern parts of Canada, so I'm nowhere near LA right now. And if anything, like I guess the latter half of last year, money was dried up and people were holding on to their resources. But it's funny, the past couple of months I've gotten 4 or 5 freelance orchestration gigs again, and I think it's just because people are, it's the start of a new year, and the fact that I have my work online is extremely helpful, because I mean, all the work I've received online is because of the YouTube channel, and I think that just reinforces how important it is to at least have a certain portfolio online somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
And and it gives people a chance to hear what you do. And of course, if you can interact with other people online in some capacity, it doesn't even have to be with, higher up people like directors or whatever, but the way you come across is obviously very important. And sometimes people hire you more because of how you come across rather than, oh, is he like the best composer out there? Obviously we're not, because there's always someone quote unquote better than us. But I guess the people skills and the relationships that we build are so crucial. So I guess we can really be anywhere nowadays as long as we have the basic equipment and a solid internet connection and the ability to.
Both those things are. They're more, approachable, or not approachable. What's the word I'm searching for? They're more obtainable now than ever.
Yeah.
You don't need to own every single sample library that exists to be able to work in this industry. You need maybe, like a handful, like one big orchestral something for your bread and butter and a few specialized ones. Exactly. Like you don't need, and you can do it off of like a laptop these days. So that's cool. The internet connection obviously can vary depending on where you are, but it's just more available. And again, that goes back to that idea where it's like, it's cool to see that, but then also part of me is like, oh my gosh, I am now competing against literally everyone in the universe.
Right.
Everyone that can afford a MacBook Pro.
Sure.
So that's also something to keep in mind, that you're not, it's not just, if you manage to find success, you can't just kind of coast on that, which is probably really good, right? Because it kind of forces you to up your game, which is great for all of us.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's interesting times for sure, but we'll see how it comes out. Like, at least in our part of the country, it's still pretty strict in terms of lockdown. My region is a little bit more opened up, so I can teach a little bit more in person, but other parts are still locked down. So we make do with what we have. But I think as long as we, especially now, as long as we have some sort of regular income, then that's good for us. Whether that's in music, not in music. It seems like Curtis hasn't been affected negatively, which is great to hear. But for those people who maybe don't have their regular gigs anymore, I've read a lot of posts saying like, oh, I just don't, like, I'm feeling lost right now. I don't know, what to do. It's a tough spot for sure. Like, for me personally, I kind of doubled down on my online business, on my YouTube channel, and then
absolutely,
getting contacting people privately, and it gives me an opportunity to offer them, educational products if they'd like, and it just forces me to up my game, and it makes everything, it's a win-win for everybody, I think. In that case, and if you can keep writing music and make income from that, then that's obviously wonderful. So
it's got to be hard if you do in-person stuff. If you're just musicians alone, like, it's got to be really hard because concerts are not happening.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's got to be so hard. And I just think, whenever I say this, I always feel like I'm guilting people, which I really don't want to. I don't want that to come across at all.
Right.
But like, the only advice I have to people is to just, like, you have to have as many things going, as many pots on the stove as possible.
Sure.
And if that's a YouTube channel and like, I've been trying to stream more recently and post to a YouTube channel recently. And, I've got albums out that are not from any like gigs or anything. I just try to make music so that I'm always making music. And individually, each one of those things is not, sustainable as a full income. But the idea is to try to aggregate them as much as possible into that. Which is hard. It's really, really hard because sometimes, it's 6:30 p.m., and you've been working since 6:30 a.m. and now it's time to do the YouTube, and you don't want to do it because you're going to get 26 views, right? Because you're new to it or whatever. And it's like, but it's just like, I don't know what else to tell you. But it's just hard. And the more things you have going, the more they kind of start to add on to one another, and they feed into one another, and your YouTube channel gets you exposure for, like you were mentioning, your orchestration gigs, or gets you connected with a game developer, or even like somebody who wants you to just do synthstration, right? Like people who need backing tracks for their albums and stuff like that. So
yeah, absolutely. Being online nowadays, it's more important than ever. I think that's the underlying message we're sharing.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard to do that. It's like nobody being a quote unquote celebrity, which none of us are, but like we have to act like we are, right? And it's kind of draining.
It can be, for sure. Yeah. Like I a couple weeks ago, I was recording a batch of videos for the channel, and then I didn't record for a week or two, and getting back into it feels a little like, oh, I have to get back into the rhythm of things. But like, actually, once you start and you get into the groove, it could start to feed itself. Like before you know it, you've already recorded, 2, 3, 4 videos, or you've been streaming for a couple hours, and you're like on a roll and all that. So really, the hardest part is just to get started, I think, because you're gonna get better every time you do it. So
absolutely,
it's gonna become more natural.
I guess we can move on to the next topic, which is like what has been happening in Sampleland over these over these couple of months, since we usually cover big releases and things like that. I know what have you been interested in recently?
Yeah, it's really interesting. There's been a flurry of like new releases lately. Of course, I'm not a Spitfire, EastWest VSL, or AudioBro user. I kind of stay pretty simple with what I usually have, and the one that's really caught my attention recently is Vista Strings by Performance Samples. And that one, it's a legato only library, and this is my pick of the week, by the way. Pick of the month, I should say. And it's a legato only library, and it's slurred legato, so you can really hear the transitions between the notes, but it has this really classic, passionate, romantic sound, which is really, really nice as an additional layer on top of your existing strings. So what I've been doing is using CSS and Vista as like a gel, basically. And then it's really cool. Like Vista also comes with a 3 violins overlay patch to go on top of its original 5 violins patch for an additional set of detail and texture and all that. So it's been really nice, and the style of writing that I do is a lot of legato stuff. So for me, it was pretty much a perfect fit. But that's what I've been noticing recently. And then OT has their Berlin Symphonic strings, which I did a review for as well, and that's a wonderful library, 3 types of legatos, and they released an update recently, which I actually haven't updated yet, but apparently it makes the legato better and more playable. Some mixed reviews on that, but for me, I've been sticking with CSS and Vista so far, so it's been a lot of fun. Yeah, how about you?
I also picked up Berlin Symphonic. I saw that come out, and I was like, ugh, I just bought Berlin Strings finally. Right. Oh, now they have another. But I thought, Berlin Strings is so good, and they're so. I appreciate how thorough they are in their approach, right? Like nothing is missing when you pick up a Berlin library. It's got everything you could possibly need. It usually has specialized articulations that you don't find in other libraries, even in the base ones without their like expansions. Usually even in the base ones there's a few things in there that are just kind of going the extra mile. Obviously, I like the space that they record in. I think it's got a nice neutral. It's very neutral, which is very useful in samples. I love Spitfire. I think air sounds great, but it's definitely its own thing. And if that's not your thing, right, you gotta kind of move to somebody else's library for that that project or section or whatever you're working on. So that's one of the things I really appreciate about Berlin is everything's very kind of neutral. Exactly. I've liked it so far. I mean, I would like to see them work a little more on stability of Sign Player. I have a lot of crashes with Sign Player to this day. I've sort of figured out how to baby it where I know exactly what I do that causes the crash, but it would be nice to not have to do that.
For sure.
But I do like Sign Player. Sign Player is really, really cool. And I'm really looking forward to what I'm sure they'll work on it. It'll be fine in a couple of years, but or a year or whatever, months. Next week? I don't know. If you're listening, that'd be nice.
Right.
But yeah, no, it sounds really good. The default sound levels in it are a little low for me, which is weird.
Okay.
But but I mean, that's easy enough to fix here. But it's anytime I have to go in and mess with the mixer, I'm always like, why?
Right.
But it sounds good. It sounds really good. And the larger section size is definitely welcome. Because you used to have to kind of choose between the Berlin approach to things, or with a small ensemble, or a bigger ensemble, but not getting their really nice attention to detail and all that great stuff that they bring to the table. So it's nice to have both those things.
For sure.
I haven't really delved into it too far.
Same here, yeah.
Some other stuff that's come out. Obviously, I've been looking at AudioBro's Modern Scoring Strings recently on my various video outlets.
Yep.
Twitch streams, YouTube, etc.
Better than me.
That's a really cool library, and they seem like really cool developers. I had made some small critiques of their legato on a live stream, and they were like, when I posted it to YouTube, they were just like in my comments 10 minutes after I posted it, like, hey, we noticed you didn't like the legatos, what can we improve? And they've been emailing me, and we've been kind of going back and forth, and I've been making some suggestions, and they're on VI control, and they're just one of the things I really appreciated is they popped into the thread and talked about how responding to VI control critiques requires you to check your ego at the door and just listen. I was just like, wow, that's really very kind of you, because a lot of people say really mean things about every product.
Sure.
And not all of them are super warranted. So that's an interesting library. It's very on the bright side, I would say.
Right.
It definitely is sort of the anti-CSS.
Sure,
CSS to me has always been way too dark. I think they it's almost muffled in time at times.
I can agree with that.
So I'm always fighting that with CSS, but obviously the programming is exceptional on CSS.
Sure.
So Modern Scoring Strings is kind of, I would say, the opposite of that. It's almost a little too bright for me. It's everything's got those really popped highs, that layer of air at the top where they basically Gullfossed everything to. Well, I don't think they actually used Gullfoss, but it would be like you put your strings through Gullfoss and cranked it a little, maybe a little too high. Obviously, it you can go in and mess with that and kind of work that on your end, but that's something I would say is if you like that dark, more woody, I guess, CSS sound, the sound of this is probably going to put you off a little bit. But it does have some features that I think are pretty unique and interesting. Its auto divisi is really cool. The ostinato tool, where you can get those John Williams rocking strings in chords, is really, really, really cool. In both my live streams, I was like, this is worth the price of admission, or almost worth the price of admission.
Yeah.
And it definitely is. So
awesome. How do you think it compares to Last? I don't know if
I haven't used Last, so that's one of those ones. That's one of those really popular libraries that I've just never tried. Right, I've just never tried it. So
right. That's
so
fair,
I can't really speak to it, but
that's fair. Yeah. Because I mean, for those who don't know, it's made by the same developer, and people are looking to Modern Scoring Strings as kind of the sequel to Last 2.0, I guess, or 3.0, whatever. But yeah, it's interesting for those of you who have picked it up. Feel free to let us know what you think about it in the Discord channel. So it sounds like we only talked about strings. That's great. Oh, speaking
I feel like there's been just a lot of string releases.
That's true. Yeah, and speaking of which, Realitone has just released their contact player version of their Sunset strings, and Mike Green from Realitone was very, very kind to send me a copy of it. But essentially, it's a non-legato string library that specializes in textured material, basically. And what's really cool is the mod wheel basically crossfades between different, like 2 different patches. So at the bottom of the mod wheel, you can set it to, for example, soltasto strings, like violins, and then at the top of the mod wheel, you can set it to, let's say, tremolos. So you can really ride the, the crossfades in between, and you can go from one to the other. And libraries have kind of done this before, but this library embraces it entirely, and the sound is really nice. So yeah, really innovative kind of concept from Mike, and yeah, just a library to look out for.
That's such a cool idea. I mean, there's so many things in samples that you do, like tricks like that,
right?
That you would never, right? Like you were writing it out on paper, you'd never be like, consort for the first 2 beats and then non-consort for the second 2 beats.
Right.
You'd give that to a string player, and they would, like, shoot you,
yeah,
or like glare at you with such a withering stare that you that you melted. But
yeah.
But in samples, stuff like that works. Like in samples,
sure.
that's like an awesome technique. So that's really cool.
Yeah, yeah. So lots of choices on the market for us. That is something that's really good to have. The competition between developers is something that is underappreciated.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's really nice to have.
Well, I mean, it's been a bit of a short episode, Chris, but, we're kind of still getting back into the swing of things, much like the rest of Western society. Well, global society, really.
Yeah.
So a little bit shorter episode, but, we just wanted to get something out and just kind of put I don't want to say put a placeholder, but just let everybody know, yes, we are still making the podcast. Yes. Yes, we do plan to continue every month, put down an episode. We're just kind of, just like you, getting back into regular life after a year of insanity. So
exactly.
Thanks to everybody who listens. As always, you can contact us. We have a Discord, the Composing Made Simple Discord. You can go to composingmadesimple.com. That's got links to the Discord. That's got links to our RSS feeds for this podcast. And of course, everybody, links to everybody's sites and stuff. Who's on. Chris and me and Todd all have our various platforms linked there, I'm sure.
It's impressive. I think most importantly is that everyone listening, or that everyone who's been supporting us on the journey, everyone is staying safe and well and healthy. It's not an easy time for anybody, but hey, I mean, if you manage to look at the positive side of things and try some different business ventures during the past year or so, hopefully it's starting to pay off for you. And hey, if things are still looking kind of grim for you at the moment and you haven't really tried other avenues or types of revenue, it's never too late to start, because when things pick back up, normal life will come back, and you'll probably get busy again. But now is a better time than ever to try out some new things, I think. So,
absolutely. I completely agree. Well, that's been a wonderful podcast, and we'll see you next month.
Yes, catch you, everybody.
Yay! All right.
Awesome.
Cool.